Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection tonight. Coming up, what are the latest recommendations for screening for breast cancer? That's ahead in our health segment. But we begin tonight with the indictment of the former chairman of the Trump campaign and where this investigation might be headed. Joining us is former prosecutor, now criminal defense lawyer Adam Ruther of Rosenberg Martin Greenberg. Adam, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Jeff.
A lot of news today with the indictment of Manafort and Gates and the news that a former policy advisor to the campaign named Papadopoulos is cooperating with investigators. In that, Trump's opponents see an indictment or at least an impeachment around the corner. His supporters say nothing to see here. What do you say?
Well, what I say is we're still very early in this process. These first indictments, the three that we've seen, the one that we didn't know about that resulted in the guilty plea about a month ago, and these two now are really just the initial foray into actual prosecution of the cases that are going to come from this investigation. And as a lot of people have noted, these cases are not actually specifically about the stated target of the investigation that Mr. Mueller was actually requested to go and perform. These are ancillary to that. And so what we're seeing here is a buildup, a development of witnesses who are going to be necessary in order to give the information that is ultimately going to bear on the actual topic that the investigation was supposed to be on.
So how does this fit into the prosecutor's playbook?
Well, the prosecutor's playbook, by and large, in these sorts of cases is going to be, okay, who are the players? Who are the world of possibility witnesses that we could go after? And what possible leverage do we have against each of them? Because you can imagine most of the time if the FBI and the Department of Justice come knocking on your door and say, would you like to be a witness for us? You're probably going to pause for a second. And what they like to do is to organize their cases in such a way that all of their witnesses are very heavily incentivized to be completely candid with them and to participate willingly across the board all the way through the end of their trial. And usually the way that they do that is by finding criminal charges that they can bring or threaten to bring against those witnesses in order to tell them, look, we've got this very damaging evidence against you related to this one incident, but if you give us information, if you help us with this other prosecution that we're interested in, then maybe we can make you a better plea deal or we can let this slide entirely. That seems to be what they're doing, and this is just the first step.
So we know that Papadopoulos is cooperating. Might Manafort cooperate? Is that the goal of this stage of the investigation?
I can't say for certain that it's the goal of this stage of the investigation, but the fact that they've brought these indictments against two individuals who one would certainly imagine, given their positions in the Trump campaign during the relevant time period, if the Trump campaign had involvement with Russia having involvement in the 2016 election, it would be very hard to imagine that Paul Manafort and Mr. Gates would not have had information about that. And so this leverage, one would certainly expect, would go toward getting those two individuals to become witnesses and offer what they know about what the target of the investigation actually is.
The president tweeted today, no collusion, I think in all capitals. What does the word collusion actually mean? There's no crime out there. There's conspiracy crimes. Is there a collusion offense?
And by and large, what people are talking about when they say collusion is what they're talking about is a conspiracy. And conspiracy is a very broad concept. A conspiracy simply means that two or more people are agreeing to commit some other criminal act. And in the federal law, they have to agree to commit some other criminal act, and somebody has to do some act in furtherance of that conspiracy. So it's not enough for you and I to just sit here and say, let's rob a federally insured bank, and you say, oh, that sounds like fun. Okay. That's not a conspiracy under federal law.
Counsel was putting words in my mouth, by the way, but go on.
We have to make an agreement, and then we have to go and do something in order to prepare for or make that plan actually succeed. So collusion isn't necessarily what we're really looking at, but those are the elements of conspiracy under these circumstances.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question, a thought about what might be going on in this investigation, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPT News. Now, the Justice Department works for the president. The special prosecutor doesn't, but could be fired by the officials at the Justice Department, certain officials. Could the president move on Mueller at some point?
He certainly could. And this is an interesting nuance. Everyone can think back to when we went through this process of having a special prosecutor when we were dealing with the Monica Lewinsky scandal in the Clinton administration. And the special prosecutor, Ken Starr, was appointed under a statute that dealt with that, specifically the special prosecutor. And there, the special prosecutor was appointed by the judiciary and maintained by the judiciary. And so there was a separation of control there. The Special Prosecutor Act was allowed to expire, and now all we have are the provisions for a special counsel to be appointed by the Department of Justice, and there's really no getting around the connection between the Department of Justice as part of the executive branch, and therefore the president is the top of that branch, and if the president was willing to experience the fallout of firing the prosecutor who's investigating his people, he could conceivably do that, as Richard Nixon did.
You know, and trying to guess where this is going. If it's going in the direction of a full financial probe, like was done of Manafort, Trump has declared that to be his red line. If it's heading elsewhere, maybe it goes for a while.
That's entirely possible. And these investigations sometimes take on a mind of their own, or take on a life of their own. You go where the evidence leads you. If you're conducting an investigation the other way around, you're doing it in something of a disingenuous way. If you're saying, I am going to gather all the evidence I can that this person committed this crime, then you're not really being true to the investigative method, which is to see where the evidence leads you, rather than to see what evidence you can find of a crime that you're looking for.
And this is such a completely different thing because, in the end, it's political. Congress is doing its own parallel investigation, and the end game for opponents of the president is more likely an impeachment than an indictment.
And it's important to step back for a second and recognize that the real justice being sought here is a determination of whether our democracy has been compromised by another country. And if that has happened, who in the United States has committed the treasonous act of assisting another country in compromising our democracy? So the president may or may not have been involved, his campaign may or may not have been involved, but the investigation to determine whether our democracy has been compromised in that way is incredibly important.
Let's take a call from Baltimore. This is Rena. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to know, who is George Papadopoulos? They said he was a volunteer on the campaign. Was he hired? Why was this 32-year-old entrusted with this task? And with Trump, you know that I feel like there's not a lot of depth to his decision-making, and so the decision to maybe have this guy on the campaign was all personal, and maybe he's friends with the Papadopoulos family. Like, who are they?
It's a good question. It was the first we had heard the name was today, I think.
That's the first I had heard the name, and what I've read and heard from other news outlets is that Mr. Papadopoulos, and if you look at what's being espoused by certain media outlets, they suggest that he had a much larger role in the campaign than what the White House is saying at this point. It sounds like there's some disjuncture there. The White House is obviously downplaying his role, that he was a low-level volunteer in the campaign as opposed to somebody who would have been trusted with the sorts of access that it sounds like he exercised. So as with most things, the reality is probably somewhere in the middle in terms of where he is in the overall ladder or support or management structure of the campaign. But that's a fact that's certainly borne out, I'm sure, by the Department of Justice's investigation. I mean, there's only so much gray area on who someone is and what they've done.
The other exposure that the president may conceivably have is in the firing of James Comey, the FBI director. Is there a potential case to be made that that was an obstruction of justice, or could any president, any executive say that I did it for these 4 reasons simultaneously?
Well, you've sort of hit the nail on the head. There's an enormous amount of gray area in the fact pattern that at least we understand was the interaction between James Comey and the president in that conversation in private that was uncomfortable for Director Comey. Specifically because it was in private and that was unusual. There's a lot of gray area there. There was a lot of, if you believe the president was making a wink and a nod about, well, maybe we should leave Flynn alone, then arguably he's exerting influence on an official who has a responsibility to enforce the law, and that could be obstruction of justice. If, on the other hand, it was just a passing comment and it wasn't meant to coerce corruptly someone to do something to obstruct justice, then that would be a defense. But it's exactly those facts. The entire process of criminal justice is determining whether the facts match up with the elements of the criminal offense. And so it would be up to a judge or up to a jury to make that determination based on a complete set of those facts.
It's just a spectacular web of stuff. I mean, who would have imagined Election Day was a year ago? Who would have imagined this ball of complexity that we have at this point? Let's grab another call. Baltimore County. This is Rob. Rob, you're on MPT.
Hi, Jeff. I would just like to suggest that, with all due respect, so much of what I hear on television and reports is supposition. And I think if you look back at the career of Robert Mueller, you'll see that he's a person who likes to build his case completely, have all the cards in his hand, and then when he brings an indictment, it's a crushing blow because he has everything lined up. I doubt very seriously whether he would bring out pieces here and there over a period of time. And remember, this indictment's 2005 to 2015 maybe? It doesn't even include the time period that Manafort was in the Trump campaign.
Rob,
so just something to think about.
Thank you very much for the phone call. We've been doing nothing but supposition here for the last 11 minutes. But before we go, if there's going to be a Manafort trial, when? How long would that case take to get to trial?
It could be as much as a year. That's highly unlikely, though. Given the evidence that's presented here, it's pretty unlikely.
Adam Ruther of Rosenberg, Martin, Greenberg, this was fun. Thanks for coming by.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Coming up tonight, new screening and treatment for breast cancer. We'll be right back.
Got an unused vehicle going nowhere? Donate it to the one place that can take you any place. Visit mpt.org/vehicles and support the programs you love on MPT.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
What happens in Japan and Asia matters to me. And with NHK World's newsroom in Tokyo, I get the news live from Japan right at the start of my day.
New ideas come out of Asia all the time. NHK Newsline reports on business, technology, and world events from Tokyo to Bangkok.
Once in the morning gives me a heads up on the competition.
Every hour on the hour, the news I want from Asia.
Watch NHK World now on Comcast Channel 268 and Verizon Channel 480.
Are you turning 70 and a half this year? If so, you generally have to start spending down your retirement account. Even the minimum distribution can place you in a sticky situation. Luckily, you can now use your IRA to make tax-free gifts. Gifts up to $100,000 will never count as income, but always make a difference. That's icing on the cake.
Make your gift for this year before December 31st. Visit mpt.org/support.
This is a box that showed you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
And joining us for this week's Your Health segment is Dr. Rima Kuzi of the University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center Cancer Institute. Doctor, good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Let's start with a minute about the numbers on breast cancer. Statistically, it's 1 in 8 people, I guess women. Who get breast cancer over their lifetime. 85% do not have a family history. So it's random?
Yes, I mean, it's not random, but...
Well, so much of cancer maybe is.
Yeah, I mean, as our bodies age, we are at risk for developing health problems, and cancer is one of them. And in women, breast cancer is the #1 cancer. So actually, aging is numerically is the biggest risk factor.
We should all try to avoid aging as long as possible.
If there's that pill to prevent that, that would be great.
But there are some practical ways, and if you think about diet and exercise, and does that play a role?
Yeah, there are environmental and personal risk factors as well. So eating healthy, staying fit, staying trim, that lowers the risk. Exposure to oral, taking hormone replacement therapy increases the risk, and then there are some, factors related to family history. So that's the smaller percentage of patients.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about the treatment or diagnosis or screening for breast cancer, give us a call. We'll have the number on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPT News. Doctor, one of the things you're focused on is complementary health, integrative medicine. What are we talking about?
Okay. So when you see a patient who's diagnosed with cancer, not just necessarily breast cancer, but any cancer, it's an overwhelming process. There are physical and emotional aspects to it. We put a treatment plan that's focusing on the cancer, but we really have a big responsibility to help the patient move on into becoming a survivor, to also help them throughout their treatment with supportive measures that can help them handle the side effects better and to tolerate the treatment better. So some of the complementary strategies are actually well established that are available in many places, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, dietary support. But there are others that are a little bit more, unique and are gaining momentum. So we have art therapy during chemotherapy sessions. Patients have the opportunity to also have healing touch, which is an energy type of therapy, which is phenomenal in helping patients center and be calm. It's incorporated with aromatherapy. I don't do all of that. Actually, there are different folks who do it, but it's offered at our center.
So it helps the spirit.
It helps the spirit, it helps the mind, and as you address that, also helps you cope with side effects. Yoga, acupuncture, I mean, it goes on. The list is quite long of journaling. Sometimes patients find that helps them, cope with the side effects of treatments. Social work, pastoral care. I mean, it's actually pretty interesting how when you pull in all of those complementary strategies, you actually help the patient handle their treatment better, and also, during their survivorship phase, they can seem to move on to put the cancer diagnosis behind them faster.
Did they cover all that in medical school?
No, actually, that's not well taught. Maybe with the younger generation, but not in my days.
Let's take a phone call. Anne Arundel County, this is Ira. Ira, you're on MPT. Go ahead.
Doctor, on the 23rd or 24th of October, the doctors, they had a breast cancer doctor on, and she stated there is some type of chemical that's in the file that we eat, chicken, turkey, wheat, beef, and popcorn, that is contributing to breast cancer.
I didn't hear all of that. It was a chemical that's in popcorn and what else?
Beef, wheat, and chicken and turkeys.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
know. And dairy products.
Do you remember the name of the chemical?
I did not hear the name of the chemical. That's why I was calling to really, because I'm very concerned about that, because of that diagnosis is in some members of my family.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the phone call. Broadly speaking, what should we all be eating or not eating?
Well, we should eat healthy. We should, the American, I think it's called the American plate diet, which is, if you think of your plate, 2/3 of the plate should have fruits and vegetables, plant-based food, and 1/3 should be lean meats, chicken, no more than 1/3. should always discuss, everybody should discuss with their primary care physician what limitations they should have on their diet. Obviously, if you're diabetic, you should have a different diet than if you're non-diabetic, I'm not sure about this chemical that this lady is referring to. Obviously, it's always a concern about what we put in our body, but I'm not aware of a specific chemical.
I did want to pick up when she said there have been a couple of members of her family with breast cancer. How does that change what your recommendations, general medical recommendations, might be to somebody in terms of screening for breast cancer?
Well, first of all, I think if there's a family history, it's important to really evaluate that fully. It's not just breast cancer. There may be some family history of other cancers as well, like colon cancer or ovarian cancer, that can be linked genetically. And if such a family history exists, then the patient should really, some unaffected member of the family, somebody in the family who's had cancer, should probably get genetic counseling and see if there is the opportunity to do genetic testing. But with respect to screening, if there is a known genetic mutation, it may intensify the type of screening from just mammography to include breast MRI, for example.
Right.
So it makes a difference.
Let's take a call from Fairfax. This is Dale. Dale, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm a 70-year-old woman. I've never had a mammography. I just had my first thermography. That's a non-irradiating form of breast cancer screening that does not increase your chance of getting cancer. It's been said that every mammogram increases your chance by 2%. So that's my question. We never hear about thermography. It was an out-of-pocket expense for me, but I was willing to pay for it because I don't want to be exposed to X-rays unnecessarily.
Dale, thank you very much.
If I could just speak to one thing you said.
Sure.
I believe that the compound that you're talking about, which is found very high in non-organically raised oats, is glycophosphate. It's an herbicide, and it's used as a desiccant to dry things on the plant before they're harvested.
All right, Dale, thank you very much for the call.
Yeah.
The technique.
So thermograms.
What is that?
It's a heat form of screening. It's was popular many years ago. It's no longer used as in mainstream medicine. Some patients still want to do it, but there is really no conclusive. I mean, it doesn't compare as well with standard mammography, especially now we have 3D mammograms that have a very good pickup rate. We don't endorse it. I mean, if people want to do it, that's fine, but it's not part of standard of care.
You're not a radiologist, but the number that the caller cited about the risk going up by 2% seems high.
It seems very high.
Yeah.
And actually, every time you do a scan, there is a small a little bit of radiation, but a mammogram is no more than just background radiation that you're exposed to in 2 or 3 days of life, So it's very low level of radiation. And you weigh that against the potential benefit of picking very early stages of cancer that could be cured, So I think the risk-benefit ratio has been well looked at, and I think it's in favor of mammography.
Call from Berkeley, West Virginia. This is Doris. Doris, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Thank you.
I am a 13-year breast cancer survivor.
Great.
Good.
And at the time, I was HER2 positive, but hormone negative. And at the time, Herceptin had just came out in a clinical trial, and I took it intravenous. And I just wanted to know where Herceptin, how it has grown, or what's changed now that it's now out of clinical trial. How has HER2 or Herceptin advanced as far as treatment of HER2?
Thank you so much for the phone call, and that is related to what I was going to ask next about the survival rate, which is 90%.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Doris. It's wonderful to hear this. It's still my favorite drug. It is. It has revolutionized the outcomes for women with breast cancer. It cut down the risk of recurrence by 50%, and it's been the biggest advance for HER2-positive breast cancer. There's been some further improvements since then. There's a drug called pertuzumab or Perjeta that improves the outcomes a little bit more, but we're talking about now 1 or 2 or 3, 4% more than what Herceptin did. So that's it's actually the FDA is evaluating this drug to see if it's going to approve it soon. And there's another drug that is called I'm blanking out on the name of it. It's an oral compound, and it's FDA approved for HER2-positive breast cancer.
Let's squeeze in one quick call from Sussex County. This is Doris. Doris, a quick question, please. Doris, are you there?
This is Linda.
Well, Linda, give me a quick question.
Okay. My daughter was told that there was a certain time of the month that she could get an MRI of her breast. Is that correct?
Interesting. Thank you very much.
If your daughter is premenopausal, they like to time the MRI to the menstrual cycle because the breast tissue would be less busy, or there'll be less risk of getting false positive reads on the MRI. So it's typically, I think, the first 10 or so days of the cycle, I think they like to do it.
Very good. Dr. Rima Kuzi, University of Maryland, St. Joseph Medical Center, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with Your Money in Business. Have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.